We're really quite encouraged by the way in which
Mm,
this guidance is starting to reframe things, and is starting to push back against what has been happening in
mm.
schools, especially since 2019 when the relationships and sex and health education came in.
Steve Bigu, it's such a joy to talk to you. I don't think we've spoken before, have we, on this channel?
I don't think we've been on this channel together. No, it's great to be with you, Tony.
Well, it's just fantastic to talk to you. Now, for anybody who doesn't know you, well, shame on you, but this is Steve Bigu, who is Christian Concerns Head of Education, Director of Education. What do you call yourself?
Yeah, I'm the head of education for Christian Concern. I've been doing that for over 3 years now. Yeah.
Yeah, Christian Concern, again, obviously one of those wonderful organisations who really make a difference, not just for Christians, but for everybody in this country, in the sense that you look after legal cases and you influence the law, which actually affects everybody in the land, protecting free speech, not just for those of faith. We, of course, are an organisation that represent people from all faiths and none, around the idea of preserving and protecting man-woman marriage. But the work you guys do benefits everyone, and so a huge thank you for that.
Well, equally, a huge thank you back for all the work that you're doing to maintain the kind of traditional Christian view of marriage. That's fantastic work that you're doing, and strength to your arm in that.
The reason we're talking today, of course, on that subject of marriage, so we would say, look, whatever else takes place in a liberal democracy, man-woman marriage, the idea of one man and one woman exclusively together for one lifetime, to the exclusion of all others, that is something which, from the evidence base, seems to produce great results, the best results in terms of outcomes for children on a population basis. The idea that male and female are immutable, the idea that there's that the bringing of those two together, and the differences between male and female complementing each other, all that sort of stuff there, which gives rise to why marriage is so good. That, to many degrees, has been kind of attacked and undermined in the education system, and especially when it comes to things like trans in schools, transitioning, the idea that somebody can change their gender from
Yes.
male to female. That's something which has been prolific in schools. Now, the government have recently issued some new guidance, which is very helpful. And I wonder, perhaps you can tell us a little bit, Steve, firstly about what the guidance says, and also a little bit about the background, because I know that some
Yeah.
of your clients in Christian Concern have really been influential in bringing it to where it is. So tell us a little bit. What's the new guidance?
We've been right at the forefront since 2017, I think it was, when we took up the case of the Rose, where what they were finding on the Isle of Wight was a boy was coming into school, and then suddenly he started to wear dresses, and the parents were supportive of this, and the school was supportive of this, and their
Mm,
own child was concerned. What's going
mm,
on here, mummy and daddy? I'm
mm,
confused about all of
mm,
this. Because there's been much success since 2017, because we've been supporting them, working with them to try to push back against the kind of guidance that's been going into schools around this whole kind of area. And
yeah.
and you're right. It's interesting. You were talking about the kind of Christian traditional view on male and female, and those ideas from the Bible, but also just basic scientific ideas about male and female. Those ideas have been more and more pushed to the side, and new ideas as to what gender is all about and what identity is all about
Mm,
have been pushed to
mm,
quite young children. The idea that you are male or female, okay, so you're born with genetic characteristics, but actually there's something else inside of you. There's something, this deeper identity that's inside of you, which is, we're going to call it your gender identity, that might be different from your biological sex. This has been taught as fact, and has been
mm,
encouraged by
mm,
multiple LGBT organizations, particularly
mm,
through the
mm,
materials that they've been providing to schools, through the ways in which they've been guiding teachers to handle things with children that might be questioning things about, what do boys do, what do girls do, hang on, I feel a bit like this,
mm,
what does that mean? And teachers have been
mm,
bringing these new ideas. They're not based in the Bible, they're not based in science, they're based in these new ways of thinking around gender ideology. And so,
mm,
yeah, the idea that God created you male or female, that's been pushed way to the back. And these organizations have peddled this. And so gender ideology has really become mainstreamed, Tony, in many of our schools. And so this guidance that's come out, um, we're really quite encouraged by the way in which
mm,
this guidance is starting to reframe things, and is starting to push back against what has been happening in schools, especially since 2019, when the relationships and sex and health education came in.
So the guidance is it's under consultation at the moment. Is that
Yes.
correct? So tell us, well, first of all, what does the guidance say to? How does it help schools? How does it help teachers who might be thinking, look, I really don't know what to do here. How does it help them?
Well, one of the things it's really helpful on is it's saying things like gender identity ideology is a contested belief. In other words, this idea that you could be born in the wrong body, that's a contested belief. Now, to you, Roy, that sounds crazy, doesn't it? That could even be not considered a contested belief. But in the government guidance, it clearly says that now, and that kind of guidance has not been clear at all to schools. So to even start from that basis, to be able to point to government documents that say this gender ideology way in which activists, organisations that have been peddling things in schools, this idea itself is contested. It's not scientific. That in this guidance is a real help to teachers, to school leaders, to parents. I know a parent even today who's going into school talking about this new guidance to say what you've been doing with the transitioning of my child is not appropriate. And we've now got some government backup in the specific draft guidance, which it is draft. You're right. It's under consultation, and the consultation is going to continue until May the 12th. But that statement alone, that it is a contested belief, is huge, as is the nature of talking about watchful waiting. What we find is that when children are questioning and having issues around this, there's normally all sorts of other issues going on in their lives as well. There's comorbidities, there are other issues to do with mental health, sometimes abuse, sometimes other things have caused confusion in their lives. And actually, as they start to ask this question, well, maybe I'm a boy when I'm a girl, or maybe I'm a girl when I'm a boy. Actually, if you don't encourage that, if you don't affirm that, if you don't push that, over 90% of those kids will just kind of grow out of that phase where they were thinking, oh, maybe this is the silver bullet to sort out all of my issues and my problems. Well, of course, those kinds of children that have had those issues, what they've had is teachers and activists around them, particularly in secondary school. But even the content of this is down as young as 4 with the books and stuff that they're being given. But they've been affirmed in this and pushed down a pathway which has led them towards potentially medically trying to change themselves, not just changing themselves with their clothes or their pronouns, but medically changing themselves and potentially going for surgery. So the fact that it says in this guidance that a watchful waiting approach is the right kind of way, you should wait a period of time before making any decisions around this. That is also a help.
A couple of questions around that then. I mean, it's ironic that so we have people of our tens of thousands of supporters who come from all faiths and no faith at all. So mostly Christians, I would say, but then people who are of different faiths and people who have no faith. And really, the irony of the situation is that we've got this idea that actually there are people who would deny faith or God who are nevertheless saying, well, there's something within you which is separate to your biology, which is separate to your physicality, which is the real you, which decides whether you're male. And you think, hold on, that sounds a lot like a soul to me, which is a bit strange. So that's by the by. But several of our supporters have emailed me over the recent months we've been discussing these things and have said, actually, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. This might happen in the rare school, here or there, but it isn't a big issue nationally. How would you respond to people who say things like that?
Well, we've had reports that have been done on the scale of this, because that question of the scale of this often comes up. And I just encourage any of your listeners or viewers to look at the policy exchange report that was produced last year, which Suella Braverman presented a policy exchange lecture, which speaks about the scale at which gender identity ideology has infiltrated schools. I'd also point people towards the new social covenant unit report, which Miriam Cates was very strongly involved in, where they were analysing what's going on in terms of relationships, sex and health education in schools, because the gender ideology has been coming in particularly since 2019, when relationships education in primary and relationships and sex education and health education in secondary became compulsory. And this report from the new social covenant unit demonstrates the scale of the number of schools the number of organizations and the number of activists who are in schools peddling the gender identity ideology. It's by no means a small one-off here or there. And I've heard a lot of shock from schools, from teachers, from unions, as they've heard this new draft guidance coming out. They're realizing they have to turn back 180 degrees on a lot of what they have been doing and what they've been advocating for. And some are even saying, to my shock, "Oh, we're just going to carry on as normal with the way in which we've been handling these kinds of issues." I think one of the things that's worth saying is, I mean, whether you're of faith or not, most people understand that it's the parents that really know their children. It's the parents who really love their children. And the ways in which parents have been cut out of decisions around the name changes, pronoun changes, what they're allowed to wear or not, what's going on with their child in school when they're struggling with this deep emotional confusion, parents being cut out of that. Most people would recognize this is a dangerous scenario where you've got activists who are peddling an ideology. It becomes cult-like and drawing their children into something which is separating them from their parents. And again, this guidance is really, really clear. It uses words like never in regards to not consulting parents when they're involved in this kinds of issues. So parents always being informed about decisions that are being made and this kinds of question is really clear in the guidance. But a lot of schools and people have already come out to say, "Oh no, we're not going to think this is just some guidance. This is non-statutory guidance. We don't really have to pay attention to this." And if any of your listeners discover that that's the kind of thing that their school is saying, I would really encourage them to probe and ask questions and activate their right to discover what's going on with the RSHE policy in their school.
And that to me is the big problem that we've got with this guidance. The fact that it is just guidance. By law, teachers must be balanced in what they teach, and when it comes to contentious political issues, they must present both sides. And clearly, up and down the country, schools and teachers and activists have not done that. They've flouted not guidance but the actual law, and they've done so with impunity.
Yes.
So it kind of strikes me that issuing some soft guidance isn't really going to stop them from carry on doing what they're doing.
It's not enough. There must be enforcement. I mean, one of the things that I've argued for is, being a head teacher myself, having been a head teacher myself, you get inspected, and you get inspected on the law and the regulations around how you should handle a school. And one of the areas that you have to get ticked off is that you are politically unpartisan. You are not politically partisan as a school.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry, but a lot of schools have been signed off as outstanding even or good when they have been peddling uncritically gender identity ideology. So there must be enforcement of what is a really contentious area, but someone's going to have to grapple with it and deal with it. And head teachers are very concerned about what the inspectors are going to say. So there seems to be a mechanism there, but it's not being used. In fact, I'm very aware that inspectors and inspectors' organisations have been already groomed to some extent by some of the LGBT organisations to say, "Oh, you need to be really careful around this area and make sure that there is lots of affirmation and love and care and concern and no bullying." It's all framed in those kind of terms, but as a way to encourage gender identity ideology to still flourish in schools. In fact, I know of a religious school that was even recommended it should be teaching more about gender identity ideology a few years ago by the Ofsted inspectors that visited that school. So there's a huge issue there around inspection and inspectors and the enforcement of schools being politically unpartisan in this area, contested area, which is very clear in this draft guidance of gender identity ideology.
So we need to get people to speak up, and I think that's the key here. And when I've had the privilege, Steve, of going around the country and talking to thousands of our supporters and many teachers, and often teachers will say, "Well, look, we're a bit scared of losing our job. We're looking forward to the parents making a fuss here," and the parents will say, "Well, I'm too scared about saying anything in case I'm ostracised, and also in case little Johnny's ostracised, but also I don't really know what to say and how to put it." Is there anywhere parents can go to look for standard letter templates or anything else like that? So if they want to object, there's kind of a form of words they can use.
Talk to us at Christian Concern. I'm the head of the education department. We have all sorts of resources available to help support parents and teachers and governors. So do contact us. There's an article on our website and a resource that we give to parents regularly called "How to Successfully Make a Complaint to Schools." and there's advice a part of all of that. You want, if you can deal with things informally, do, but sometimes you have to go as far as activating the complaints procedures of those schools as a parent, and that is actually a really effective way to get the school's attention when you're concerned about something, and that requires them to have meetings with you in certain timescales. I mean, I would also say do get involved in the consultations around the relationships and sex education. The school is obliged to consult you about its RSHE policy. And when they're consulting you, when you do read the newsletters, do find out when that consultation is occurring and get involved and say, look, I'm not happy about my children being taught gender identity ideology, for example. Make your voice heard as a parent. It is tricky for teachers because you're right, they're kind of wrestling, will I lose my job over this? And we've supported numbers of staff in schools who have very courageously pushed back against what's been going on in their schools, and it hasn't gone well for them, and we're still fighting those cases in the courts. And we do need your support, other people's support to help us with the legal support that we're able to give to these people to see these things come through in court. And now we've got this guidance already. We're using some of the draft guidance here to say, well, these people that we've been supporting in the past, like Hannah in inverted commas, and we look up Hannah's case, look, the new draft guidance, this is vindicating what they were actually saying and what they were actually doing. You shouldn't have barred Joshua Sutcliffe from being a teacher anymore, because what he was doing was the exact things that you say should be still okay in schools by teachers. So, yeah, we are at the cutting edge, really, on pushing back on a whole number of these areas, and do contact us if we can be of any assistance.
Parents, well, why don't you apply to be a governor too? If you feel that's something you can do that. Even up the tree further. If you feel you can join a political association with a few of your mates and influence who your local MPs and councillors are, do that. If you can stand for office, do that. But do something. Even if the least you do is not comply with the language. Do not say what you don't believe. Do not speak lies, as Rob Dreher might say.
Yes.
Even if that's the least you can do. But if you can do more, then do more too, because I think, for the kids' sake, basically, but for the sake of all of society more generally, it is time for more people to perhaps say, well, hold on. No, I don't agree with any of this. Steve Bigu, such a privilege to talk to you. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's making a real difference. You must sleep so well at night knowing that the work you're doing is just so valuable. Organisations like Christian Concern, Christian Institute, the stuff you do helps everyone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Great to talk to you. Let's not leave it long before we talk again.
That's right. There's much more to do, and please do encourage people to get involved in that consultation before March the 12th. Our organisation will be putting support messages out there so that you know how to potentially contribute to that consultation. We need people to raise their voices, Tony.
Great. Steve, good to talk to you. Take care.